what are the dangers of microdosing? Like, how safe is this thing? And of course, the most like glaring danger that gets proposed is that it causes potential damage to the heart valve. What, based on the information you have, what do we know as being the genuine dangers microdosing might present to somebody, short or long term?
I don't know. Heart valve is out there, kind of like a meme. The only problem with the heart valve is there's no evidence. Let me say that again. We have no evidence. We have 40 million people in the United States that have used psychedelics since it first became illegal. We have no evidence. We do have evidence that something vaguely like a psychedelic was taken in doses approximately 10,000 times what an LSD dose would have been over a period of months. And people on that substance, and it was a weight loss drug, some of them had a heart valve problem and the drug was withdrawn. The last article I read, and it was a really lovely article, which said, we're sure that it's a real problem. Here are 84 references, and here are 2 tables listing substances and what we know about them. And I looked at the table and there were some holes in it. It said, we have no information about psilocybin. We have no information about LSD. So that's where we are. And I did write one of the guys that started this whole thing. And I said, where did you get any information? And he said, well, it was this other study years ago, and there was another one with MDMA where people took massive doses of MDMA for months and months, and they had this problem. And he said, however, from what I know of microdosing, where there are always days off and weeks off, I don't see any possible danger. So that's from one of the fearmongers. So that's the best we can do. Is we're limited by no evidence, and we're limited by no evidence in the research literature, and no evidence in the biochemical literature, and no evidence in the medical literature. Other than that, it's maybe.
And so another area we actually have no evidence of taking a microdose and people having terrible results is people who have schizophrenia in their family history. There's this big thing that if you have any, schizophrenia, you better not even think about it. And since those people are always excluded from all the psychedelic studies,
we don't know.
Now with bipolar, what we do know is that from Jim looking on Reddit is that if you are bipolar, you don't want to take it in the up, it used to be called manic depressive. You don't want to take it in the up manic part of the cycle. But people take it in the depressive part and they're having really good results.
So there is a genuine problem. There's a genuine thing that can go wrong and people report it. And thank goodness you asked because you didn't know about it. It's called tinnitus. Tinnitus is the ringing in the ears. People have reported that when they microdose, they would have tinnitus. Not too many and not too often, but enough to notice. And people with tinnitus would report that it was worse while microdosing. We don't have reports of it lasting when they stop microdosing. And we do have a couple of reports that it helped people's tinnitus as well. So it's worth noticing that tinnitus actually is a known, rare but known side effect where we have actual evidence.
And same thing with tracers with people with red-green color blindness. Sometimes they have more tracers and it gets a little bit worse. And some of those people know that and they've continued to microdose anyway.
They say the benefits outweigh having tracers. What they're saying is we microdose on day 1 and we have tracers for a couple of days. Tracers are when you see an electric light and as you turn, there's kind of the light follows you. It's what you see with a sparkler in the dark, that kind of track of light.
And from what I understand,
that's the best we can do.
Yeah, you do have some reports of people who experience some anxiety sometimes, and what I read in the book, that's like, oh yeah, no, cut your dose in half and a half again. Most people, that anxiety doesn't
also
continue.
With anxiety, we have a nuance between, is it free-floating generalized anxiety that maybe microdosing won't work, but if it's anxiety hooked to depression or hooked to public speaking or hooked to a specific issue in your life, then it generally seems to be fine and doesn't make it worse.
And the last one would be drug-to-drug interactions, which don't go into in full detail because you have a huge list in your book of things that are known to be safe. But from what I understand, for the most part,
reported
it's mostly
to be
safe.
Like everything else in the book. They're
Yeah.
reported to be safe by people who use them. And there are two kinds of meds. People want to stay on them. Will microdosing make it harder? And the answer is no. Can they get off them? Microdosing will help. But again, when we say talk to your physician, that's a kind of nonsense, because that assumes that there are serious studies looking at drug interactions. And pharmaceutical companies don't like to do that research. So there's very little of it out there. What we do have, again, is people reporting that, at least for that person or those people, this particular medication, supplement, herb, etc., didn't prevent them having a successful microdosing experience. That's all we can say. We don't know.